I didn't tell my parents that I had a baby because they forced me to be the scapegoat for my sister's lies, sacrifice my wins for her attention. And they actually demanded I hand over my son, telling me she deserved to be his second mom. Hey Reddit, I've never really posted before, but I need to get this off my chest. Growing up, I was always the backup kid while my younger sister got all the attention for her so-called crisis. Every time I had something important, birthdays, school wins, anything, it somehow turned into her spotlight. My parents acted like it was normal, like I should just deal with it. Fast forward to now. I'm older, married, and a mom. What happened with my family still feels unreal. So, 27, female, and I guess the only way to start this is to say, I've always been the other kid. Like, not the golden child, not the baby everyone worships, just the, oh yeah, we also have a daughter kind of deal. My sister Danielle, 24, female, has been running the family spotlight since she was 8. That's when she got diagnosed with anxiety and depression. Now, before anyone jumps down my throat, I know those are real issues. I'm not saying she never struggled, but in my house, the second those words came out of a doctor's mouth, my parents basically rebranded Danielle as some fragile glass doll who couldn't be left alone, couldn't be told no, couldn't be expected to do anything normal without a meltdown. And me, their exact words were, "You're a girl, you'll be fine." Like I was born with cheat codes and no emotions. That became the family motto whenever I needed anything. Danielle cried. Emergency. Danielle didn't want to go to school. Emergency. Danielle had a stomach ache. Full family lockdown. I got sick. Go sleep it off. I had a scraped knee. Shake it off, champ. The first time I really clocked how screwed the setup was happened when I was 12. I'd been busting my ass on my middle school basketball team, practicing every day, and we actually made it to the playoffs. Huge deal for me at the time. My parents swore they'd be there. Like they made a big thing about clearing their schedules. I remember feeling pumped, thinking, wow, maybe this time they'll actually show up and cheer for me. Game day comes, and guess what? Danielle had a panic attack that morning. Full theatrics. Crying, saying she couldn't breathe, clutching her chest. My parents flipped into superhero mode and rushed her to the ER. No, hey, let's call your uncle to drive you. No, we'll split up so one of us can still go to the game. Just dropped everything and left. I asked my parents later why they didn't at least text me or something, and my mom gave me that look parents use when they think you're being unreasonable. She goes, "Your sister was in the hospital. We couldn't just leave her." And my dad chimes in with, "You're tough, daughter. We know you can handle it." Like missing the biggest game of my life was some rite of passage for building character. That became the pattern. Every time I had something going on, Danielle suddenly had a bad day. I had a science fair project. She couldn't sleep the night before because she was too anxious. Parents spent the whole morning comforting her while I was hot gluing my poster board together by myself. I wanted to have friends over. Danielle was overstimulated and they told me to cancel. Didn't matter what it was, her struggles automatically outweighed my life. And don't get me wrong, I wasn't some weak kid sitting in the corner crying. I learned to laugh it off in front of people, throw out sarcastic comments like, "Guess Danielle's the main character again." But deep down, I knew I was basically background filler in my own family. The worst part? My parents acted like I should be proud of being the strong one. They'd literally say, "We're so lucky you're so independent. You don't need us the way Danielle does." As if neglect was some kind of compliment. Meanwhile, every therapist bill, every after-school emergency pickup, every ounce of attention went to Danielle. Looking back, I think that playoff game was the real turning point. That was the day I stopped seeing my parents as people who had my back. I started to realize I was basically raising myself while they raised Danielle like she was royalty. And as much as I tried to brush it off with sarcasm, that crap sticks. You don't forget watching everyone else's parents screaming in the bleachers while your seat is empty because your sister suddenly decided she couldn't breathe. So yeah, growing up, I learned quick. I wasn't the priority. I wasn't even second place. I was just the backup kid, the one they assumed would figure it out on her own while they hovered over Danielle 24/7. And trust me, that pattern, it only got worse as I got older. By the time I turned 16, I had already adjusted to the fact that my parents couldn't be trusted to show up. But my 16th birthday was supposed to be different. My grandparents had offered to pitch in and help make it special. We booked a party at this bowling alley arcade spot in town that was basically the hangout for birthdays. My mom even ordered a custom cake with my face on it, holding a basketball. For a second, I let myself believe maybe this was the year my parents would get it right. 2 hours before the party, Danielle suddenly spiraled. She sat on the couch, crying about how she couldn't handle the stress of an upcoming test. She said she felt like she was going to pass out. My parents instantly flipped the emergency switch. Dad's keys were already in his hand. Mom was running around grabbing purses and jackets. I tried to remind them, "Hey, my party's in 2 hours." They barely looked at me. Mom just said, "Sweetie, we'll do both. Danielle just needs us right now." Guess what doing both looked like? They claimed they were taking Danielle, the cake, and the car straight to urgent care. Hours later, they finally came home smiling like everything was normal. I asked where the cake was. Mom goes, "Oh, Danielle was hungry while we were waiting, so we cut it there." At the time, I bought it, but later I'd find out the truth. There was no urgent care emergency. She'd been out with friends that night laughing it up while my grandparents kept my party alive like some sitcom gag. Except it was my life. That was the day I stopped giving them the benefit of the doubt. They weren't just unlucky. They chose her every single time. But the real turning point that year wasn't even the birthday. It was the car. See, my dad had this old sedan he babied like it was a classic. Danielle thought she was slick one night and snuck it out to go see her boyfriend. She wasn't slick. She clipped the neighbor's fence, pulling back in, and left a big dent in the front fender. Neighbor comes banging on our door the next morning, furious. I was in the kitchen eating cereal when my dad dragged me outside and pointed to the fence like it was evidence in a murder trial. "Tell the neighbor you did this." I looked at him like he'd lost his mind. I didn't even have my license yet. But nope, he already had the plan worked out. If I didn't take the blame, they'd ground Danielle too harshly and she might have a breakdown. And according to him, colleges don't like kids with a reputation for trouble. I laughed in his face at first, thought he was joking. Then my mom pulled me aside and hit me with the ultimatum. "If you don't take responsibility for this, don't expect us to help you with college. We'll have no choice but to cut you off. Do you want to ruin your future because your sister made a mistake?" That was the moment I realized exactly how low they were willing to go for her. They didn't care about me, my reputation, or the fact that I hadn't touched the car. All that mattered was protecting Danielle's precious status as the fragile one. So I caved. I went to the neighbor, apologized, said it was me. He chewed me out in front of everyone on the street. Dad docked my allowance to teach me responsibility and made me help fix the fence. Danielle sat inside with her headphones on, pretending none of it had anything to do with her. And here's the kicker. I overheard her on the phone with her boyfriend later that night, bragging that she got away with it. No guilt, no thanks, just smug. That was when the resentment really cemented itself. The birthday was humiliating, but the car incident, that was betrayal, plain and simple. They didn't just neglect me. They actively used me as a shield to protect her. I remember laying in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, thinking, so this is it. I am the sacrifice. Whenever something goes wrong, I'm the one who pays. And the worst part was knowing my parents weren't even conflicted about it. To them it made sense. I was strong. She was delicate. Therefore I could take the hit. That logic haunted me through the rest of high school. I doubled down on sports, classes, and side hustles through the rest of high school. My GPA was solid, my basketball team made regionals, and I had a part-time job at a garage changing oil just to stack some cash. I wanted one thing, college. Not some fancy Ivy, but a decent engineering program in the city. I liked building stuff, fixing things, making them work better. It felt good to use my head and my hands. I remember the night I got the acceptance letter. I came running into the living room, letter in hand, grinning like an idiot. My parents were on the couch watching TV. Danielle was scrolling on her phone. I said, I got in, full acceptance. They even gave me a partial scholarship. For half a second, they smiled. Then my mom asked, but how much is left after the scholarship? Because we need to plan around Danielle's therapy schedule and her meds. I froze. Wait, what do you mean? You guys said you were saving for college. Dad shook his head like I was the dumb one. Daughter, we told you before. Danielle's treatment isn't cheap. That's where our savings go. We just can't afford tuition for you. And that's when it hit me. The car incident ultimatum. I leaned forward and said, hold on. You literally told me when Danielle crashed the car that if I didn't take the blame, you wouldn't pay for my college. I took the blame. I ruined my own reputation for her. So where's the college money you promised?" They exchanged looks like I'd just spoken a foreign language. My mom went, "That was different. We needed you to be the strong one in that situation. Don't twist our words." I almost laughed. "I didn't twist anything. You blackmailed me into protecting Danielle. I held up my end. Now you're telling me there's nothing for me because all of it goes to her." Dad crossed his arms. "You'll figure it out. You're a hard worker. You always land on your feet. Danielle isn't built like you. She needs us more." That was it. No apology, no second thought, just, "You're fine, she's not. Deal with it." So I figured it out. I worked 2 jobs that summer, full-time at the garage, part-time delivering pizzas. I kept the scholarship and borrowed the rest through loans. I was constantly tired, always smelling like grease or pepperoni, but I didn't care. The grind was mine, and at least I didn't owe them anything. But then something unexpected happened. My grandpa, my mom's dad, pulled me aside one weekend when I went to help mow his lawn. He handed me an envelope and said, "Don't open it here. Just take it and don't tell your parents." When I opened it later, it was a check, enough to cover 2 semesters' tuition. I almost cried right there in my dorm. Grandpa had seen through their crap the whole time. A week later, he called and said, "I can't fix everything, but don't let them hold you back. You deserve better." That stuck with me. It was the first time in years a family member besides my grandparents actually said I deserve something. Meanwhile, Danielle was doing the opposite of grinding. She enrolled in community college twice, dropped out both times because the stress was too much. She bounced between coffee shops, friend groups, and mental health retreats, while my parents kept funding her lifestyle. If I brought it up, my mom snapped, "Stop comparing yourself to your sister. Her struggles are invisible. Yours are not invisible." Sure, conveniently invisible every time I accomplished something. By my senior year of college, I'd gotten pretty good at living without their involvement. I had friends, I had professors who actually noticed my work, and I had side hustles, fixing laptops, and building websites to cover bills. Honestly, I didn't even plan on inviting them. After so many letdowns, I was done setting myself up for disappointment. But Grandpa called me a week before and said, "Give them one last chance. You don't want to wonder what if." Against my better judgment, I caved. I sent them the official invitation, the whole deal. Deep down, I knew how this would go, but part of me still hoped maybe, just maybe, they'd finally show up. The night before the ceremony, my phone buzzed. It was my mom. Her voice was frantic. "We're so sorry, but Danielle's not doing well. She saw a post about graduations on social media, and it triggered her anxiety. We need to fly back immediately." I sat there in silence, diploma gown hanging in my closet. Finally, I said, "You realize tomorrow is my graduation. I already booked your hotel. This is the biggest day of my life so far." She just said, "We know, honey, but Danielle needs us right now. You're strong. You can handle this." And that was that. They flew home. I walked across the stage the next day, shook the dean's hand, and looked out into a crowd where my family's seats sat empty. The only cheers I heard were from my roommate's family, who had adopted me for the weekend. Afterward, we went out to eat, and they clapped for me like I was one of their own. When I got back to my dorm, there was a card slipped under the door from Grandpa. Inside was a $100 bill and a note. "Proud of you. Keep going." That one card meant more than anything my parents had ever done. It confirmed what I already knew. They were never going to clap for me. I could cure cancer, and they'd still say, "Yeah, but how does this make Danielle feel?" So I stopped waiting for them to show up. If they couldn't be there for my biggest day, they'd never be there at all. And the only way forward was to build a life where their absence didn't matter. So that's exactly what I did. I graduated, packed up my crappy old sedan, different one, not Dad's precious baby, and moved to the city where my job offer was waiting. Engineering firm. Nothing flashy at first, mostly grunt work and late nights. But it was mine. Nobody could take that from me. That first year out of college, I started figuring out who I was, without the weight of my parents hanging over me. I met James at work. He was in accounting, sharp as hell, and for the first time in my life, I felt like someone actually saw me. Not the strong one, not the backup kid, just me. James' family welcomed me immediately. His dad asked about my projects like he genuinely cared. His mom remembered my birthday without me having to remind her, and his siblings treated me like part of the crew from day one. It felt weird at first, being included without having to fight for space. While things with James got serious, I also started tinkering on the side. Engineering was my job, sure, but I had this itch to build something of my own. I spent nights and weekends in my tiny apartment, hammering out a project I'd been sketching since college. A couple of local firms started asking me about it, and before I knew it, my little side project was being written up in a trade magazine. When that article dropped, my phone lit up with congratulations. Coworkers, James' family, even old professors emailed me saying they were proud. It felt good, real good. Then my parents' number popped up on the screen. For the first time in years, I hesitated. Part of me thought, maybe Grandpa was right. Maybe they'll finally call to say they're proud. Against my better judgment, I picked up. Mom's voice came first. So, we saw that article. Danielle saw it too, and now she's devastated. She already feels like a failure, and you just rubbed it in her face. I laughed. Couldn't help it. Dad jumped in with his serious tone. Daughter, you need to understand how hard this is for her. You've always landed on your feet. She isn't built like you. I cut him off. So getting recognized for something I worked my ass off to build makes me the villain. What about all the milestones she ruined for me? Mom's voice got sharp. Don't twist this around. We've always told you you're strong enough to handle disappointment. Danielle isn't. That's why we have to prioritize her. That line again, the same tired excuse. You're strong. She's not. Translation. We don't care what happens to you as long as Danielle feels coddled. I didn't even let them finish. I said, thanks for reminding me why I stopped counting on you. Goodbye. Then I hung up. I sat there for a minute, phone still in my hand, realizing I felt more relief than sadness. Relief that I finally had proof, in their own words, that they were never going to change. Later that night, James found me sketching in my notebook, headphones in, trying to push the whole call out of my head. He asked if everything was okay. I told him the truth. My parents called to yell at me for succeeding. He didn't even look surprised. He just shook his head and said, you know what that means, right? You can't let them anywhere near your future, not your career, not our life, not our milestones. He was right. For years, I'd been operating under this unspoken hope that one day they'd wake up and finally treat me like their daughter, that maybe the next achievement would be the one they'd clap for. But the project made it crystal clear. It didn't matter what I did. To them, my success was always going to be a problem because it highlighted Danielle's lack of it. That was the night I decided they were officially out. Not just, I won't expect much out, but completely cut off from any role in my future. If I got married, they wouldn't be there. If I had kids, they wouldn't know them. If I built something huge, they'd read about it in the paper like strangers. And for once, that thought didn't scare me. It motivated me. Because if I was going to build a life worth living, it was going to be on my terms, not sabotaged by Danielle's fake crises or my parents' excuses. So I kept building, kept working, kept showing up for the people who actually showed up for me. And the more I leaned into that, the more their absence stopped feeling like a loss and started feeling like freedom. Life with James felt like the first time I'd been steering my own ship instead of being dragged along in the back seat. We built routines, bought a little starter house, and actually enjoyed the quiet. No drama, no emergencies, no panicked phone calls, sucking the joy out of every milestone. Just us. When James and I found out I was pregnant, it was like the universe handed me the ultimate reset button. I was going to be a mom, and right there in that moment, I knew two things. One, my kid would never grow up feeling like the backup child. Two, my parents and Danielle were never going to be part of this. We didn't debate it, didn't agonize over it. We just kept the news between us, James' family, and a couple of close friends. No one else needed to know, especially not my parents, who turned every big event of mine into Danielle's pity parade. I wasn't about to let them ruin this one, too. James' family celebrated every step. His mom came to appointments. His dad was out in the garage sanding wood for a crib before we even knew the gender. His sisters started joking about babysitting shifts. It was so normal that it felt surreal, like, oh, this is what family is supposed to look like. Fast forward to the delivery room. When my son was born, I held him and thought, this is the one moment Danielle can't steal. This is mine. We didn't call my parents, didn't text, didn't even consider it. The idea of my dad pacing around pretending he was the hero, or my mom crying about Danielle's feelings made my skin crawl. Our son's birth was sacred, and they weren't invited. 3 days later, James' sister posted a picture on Facebook. Just a sweet, simple shot. Me holding my son with the caption, "Welcome to the world, baby Owen." Within an hour, my phone turned into a grenade. Missed calls, voicemails, paragraph texts. Mom's message came first. "I can't believe you hid this from us. We had to find out from social media like strangers. You've robbed us of the chance to be grandparents. This is unforgivable." Then Dad chimed in. "You're selfish. Danielle deserves to be an aunt. She's heartbroken you excluded her from the most important family event." And then Danielle unloaded her masterpiece of manipulation. She claimed she'd had a severe anxiety attack after seeing the post, wound up in the hospital, and that my cruelty caused it. But she didn't stop there. She dropped the big reveal. She couldn't have kids of her own. Apparently, she'd been diagnosed a year ago, and my parents never told me. Now she was spinning it like my son was supposed to fill that void. "You should have let me be part of this. You don't understand how hard it is to watch you have everything I can't." I was still processing that when the voicemails rolled in. Mom's was next level delusional. "Since Danielle can't have children, you owe it to her to let her help raise Owen. Think of it as healing for the whole family. You and James are strong enough to share, but Danielle needs this to feel whole again." Dad doubled down in his monotone, serious voice. "Daughter, this is the right thing to do. Let Danielle step in like a second mother. Don't be selfish." I actually laughed out loud. My parents, the same people who skipped every graduation, ate my birthday cake in a hospital waiting room, and forced me to take the fall for a car accident I didn't cause, were now demanding I hand over my newborn like he was some kind of therapy dog for Danielle. I didn't reply. Not to the texts, not to the voicemails, not to anything. Because for once, there was nothing to argue about. They'd shown me exactly who they were. No filter. It wasn't even about Danielle's infertility. Plenty of people can't have kids, and it's tragic. But they don't try to steal someone else's. My parents weren't just clueless, they were delusional. They thought my role as their daughter was to provide Danielle with whatever she lacked, even if it meant sacrificing my own child. Meanwhile, James' family was everything mine wasn't. His mom brought over casseroles, so I didn't have to think about dinner. His dad installed safety locks on all the cabinets. His sister showed up with diapers, toys, and endless jokes to keep the stress light. Every little thing reminded me that family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up. At night, when Owen was finally asleep, Jamie would look at me and ask if I was okay. And the crazy part? I was. For the first time in my life, I felt completely at peace with shutting my parents out. No guilt, no second thoughts, just peace. Because the way I saw it, I wasn't robbing Danielle of anything. She'd been robbing me my whole life, my birthday, my championships, my graduation, and now my parents thought I'd hand her my son too. Not a chance. So I made a silent promise to Owen right there. He will never grow up as somebody's scapegoat. He will never feel invisible in his own family. And most importantly, he will never be treated like he owes someone else his happiness. For the first time, I wasn't the backup kid. I was the mom, and that was all that mattered. But if there's one thing about my family, it's that they can't let things go. A few weeks after Owen was born, my cousin Laura called me. She's one of the few relatives I still talk to. Level-headed, not wrapped up in my parents' Danielle worship cult. She asked how James and the baby were doing. We chatted for a bit, and then she got quiet. Finally, she goes, "I've been thinking about all this stuff with your parents and Danielle, and I realized something. I should have told you years ago. Turns out, back when I was 17, the night of senior prom, Danielle supposedly had a severe panic attack. My parents dragged her to the ER while I got dressed alone, waiting for a ride that never came. I ended up going with my date's family, trying not to look like the kid whose parents didn't care. Laura tells me she was working at the movie theater that night. Who does she see in line? Laughing with her boyfriend, eating popcorn. Danielle. No ER wristband, no panic attack, just a regular Friday night date. While I stood around in a rented dress, wondering if she was dying, I felt my stomach flip. All those years I told myself maybe the timing was just bad luck, and now here was proof it wasn't. After I got off the phone, I started digging. Danielle was never careful about her social media. I scrolled back years and started noticing patterns. On my 16th birthday, when they swore she was at urgent care and even ate my cake in the waiting room, her own posts showed otherwise. She'd checked in at a restaurant with her friends at the exact time my grandparents were paying for my cake at the bowling alley. So, yeah, the whole medical emergency was just a cover story. College graduation. She claimed she had a breakdown from seeing graduation posts online. Meanwhile, her Instagram showed her at a music festival that same weekend. Outfit pics, tagged friends, geotags, receipts stacked a mile high. I screenshotted everything. At least 6 different times where Danielle was supposedly on the brink of collapse, and yet she was out living her best life. I showed James, and he just shook his head. She didn't just ruin your milestones by accident. She made sure of it. That was when it really clicked. It was never about anxiety. It was about control. Anytime I was about to shine, Danielle staged a crisis to pull the spotlight back. I decided to call her. When she picked up, I asked straight up, "So, were you at a music festival during my graduation, or did Instagram hallucinate it?" Dead silence. Then she started crying. The same old script. I pressed harder. "Movie theater. You gonna tell me Laura's lying? Because Mom and Dad swore they dragged you to the ER that night. So which was it? The movies or the hospital?" Her story started to unravel. She stammered, then finally admitted, "Sometimes I exaggerated, but only because everything came so easy for you. Do you know how much it hurt to watch you get all the achievements? I needed attention too." I couldn't believe it. She actually admitted it. No remorse, just excuses. I told her flat out, "You stole moments I'll never get back, and now you think I'm going to hand you my kid? Not happening." She hung up on me, sobbing about how I was invalidating her struggle. I figured that was the end of it, until a month later, when Aunt Martha, my mom's sister, called. She's usually Team Danielle, so I almost didn't pick up, but she sounded different, nervous. She said she'd been cleaning out my grandma's house and found a shoebox of old letters. My mom had written them to my grandma over the years, and Martha thought I needed to see them. When we met up, she handed me the box. I opened the first letter, my mom's handwriting, from when Danielle was around 8. She wrote that Danielle's panic episodes always seemed to happen when I got good grades or achieved something. The kicker? Danielle's therapist had even recommended family counseling to address it. My parents decided it was too expensive and time-consuming, so instead they just gave Danielle extra attention whenever she pulled it. Every letter after that told the same story. My mom admitting Danielle would suddenly recover after big events, car accident night, college graduation, even birthdays. My mom knew Danielle was playing it up, and instead of holding her accountable, she rewarded it. The last letter made my blood boil. It was dated just weeks before Owen was born. My mom wrote to my grandma that she had a feeling I was pregnant, and that Danielle was already upset about the idea of not being the center of it. She wrote that if I really was expecting, and they were invited to the delivery, Danielle planned to stage a breakdown to remind everyone she needed support too. And my mom, she actually wrote, "If that happens, we'll leave the hospital. Danielle's health comes first." Read that again. My mom was prepared to walk out on me and James during the birth of our son, her first grandchild, to hold Danielle's hand through another performance. I closed the letter and just sat there shaking my head. For years, I gave them the benefit of the doubt, told myself they didn't realize what was happening. But the truth was worse. They knew. They always knew. And instead of protecting me, they made me the expendable one so Danielle could feel important. I looked at Martha and asked why she was giving me this now. She sighed and said, "Because I finally see it in black and white. You weren't exaggerating. They really did let her run the show." It hurt, but it also set me free. This wasn't just my paranoia or bitterness. It was documented in my mom's own handwriting. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel crazy for being angry. I felt justified. I thought maybe with the letters in my hand, I'd finally have some peace. But of course, my family wasn't done trying to drag me back into the circus. About 3 months after Owen was born, I opened the door one afternoon and nearly tripped over 2 suitcases. Standing there was Danielle, eyes red like she'd been crying all day. Turns out my parents had finally hit a breaking point. Between Grandma passing and some money issues tightening the belt, they told Danielle she either needed to get a job or start paying rent. When she pushed back, they kicked her out. Before I could even ask, she launched into it. Mom and Dad kicked me out. They said I have to get a job or start paying rent. And when I told them I couldn't handle the stress, they told me to leave. I don't have anywhere else to go. Please let me stay with you. I just stared at her. This was the same person who admitted to faking breakdowns to ruin my milestones, who thought she was entitled to co-raise my son because she couldn't have her own, and now she was standing on my porch expecting me to swoop in and save her. I told her flatly, "You drove 12 hours to the wrong house." Danielle tried softening it, saying she'd realized her mistakes and wanted to rebuild our bond. But the second I brought up the letters, her tone shifted. She admitted she'd floated the idea of faking a breakdown at Owen's birth, then tried to spin it as a joke she never meant. When I pressed about the other fake emergencies, she got defensive. My struggles were real. Sometimes I exaggerated, but only because you had everything. You could at least share the attention. That was it. I told her to leave. She refused, sat down on my porch like a squatter, and said she wasn't going anywhere until I let her explain. So I did what I had to do, called the police. When the officers showed up, Danielle put on her helpless act. "She's my sister. We're just having a family disagreement. She's being heartless while I have nowhere to go." The officers weren't buying it. They explained she couldn't just camp on my property. They suggested she contact local social services. Watching her get escorted off my porch while still crying about being the victim, it felt like the perfect symbol of my whole life with her. 2 weeks later, my dad finally called. First actual conversation since Owen was born. The earlier stuff had just been voicemails and texts I ignored. His tone was cold but rehearsed. "Your sister's in a motel, running out of money. She needs you to step up. Family takes care of each other." I didn't even raise my voice. I just asked, "Did you read the letters, Dad? The ones Mom wrote about Danielle planning to fake a breakdown at my kid's birth? Did you know?" He went quiet for a moment, then snapped. "Those letters were private. You had no right to see them. And you're oversimplifying Danielle's situation. She really struggles. You're just too selfish to understand." I laughed. Selfish? After covering for her, losing milestones, missing graduations because of her emergencies, you made me the backup kid so long you forgot I had my own life. He got angrier, accusing me of abandoning my responsibilities as a daughter and sister. He said, "Mom was heartbroken that you were tearing the family apart." I told him the truth. Danielle is an adult. She created her own mess. I'm not cleaning it up, and Owen isn't your do-over therapy doll. The call ended with him saying he was ashamed of me. I just hung up, feeling lighter than I'd ever felt. 6 months later, James and I had built a rhythm. Diapers, late nights, coffee-fueled mornings, but all of it worth it. We joined a hiking group, started volunteering at an animal shelter, and made new friends who didn't know or care about my family drama. James' parents were over constantly, spoiling Owen like real grandparents. His dad built a toy chest. His mom knitted little hats. Every milestone got celebrated the way it should. I don't regret cutting them out, not inviting them to the wedding, not telling them about my pregnancy, not letting them within a mile of Owen. The letters proved what I always knew. They were never going to choose me, and I'm done sacrificing for people who only see me as a backup. Now, when I look at my son sleeping in his crib, I make the same promise every night. You will never be invisible in your own family. You'll never be forced to carry someone else's failures. You'll be celebrated for who you are. And as for my parents and Danielle, they can keep living in their delusion. I've got better things to do.